So in these lectures, what I have tried to do at the beginning of each block of lectures is to try to introduce the figure of a little girl called Alice. And Alice is this girl here, by the way, is this girl here looking at the stars. And Alice just represents a primitive version of humanity, which doesn't mean anything bad. It just means that it's a girl with curiosity that tries to explain how the world works, and she doesn't have a scientific method to probe into the reality, into the nature of reality, but she comes up with answers, right, to try to explain what she sees. That's more or less what you need to understand. Alice is a representation of the primitive version of humanity. Yeah? And Alice, as I say, is a girl, you can imagine her, I don't know, a teenage girl, living wherever. She's universal. She's ourselves. She's ourselves, that's the point. So today, since we are talking about stories, right, mythos and logos, I'm going to tell you a story. I'm going to tell you a story, and instead of going to the books of evolutionary psychology and citing the papers and telling you how they relate to each other and how philosophy comes in, I'm going to tell you a story so that we all understand. And let's see where we get. Yes? And so Alice, in the first block of lectures that I gave, and it's in everything, it's in YouTube, Alice wondered about the nature of the world. She sees that the sun moves across the sky, yes, that there is night and day, that there is wind that moves the leaves of the trees, and she just wonders and says, why is all of this happening? Yeah? And she comes up with the stories of creation. She comes up with the mythological stories of creation, like the Greek story of creation that tells you where we come from, how men and women were made, they were made out of clay, all of these stories. So this is what we analyzed before, yeah? But now she has a divine realization, yeah? She starts to look a little bit more into the world. And she will not only try to imagine how the world was created by these invisible beings that she thinks are acting in nature, but also how she feels about it. And that's very different, yeah, from just wondering where things come from. How does that make you feel is another totally different question. Don't you agree? Yeah. So she's going to have a divine realization. It's what I called here. It's the first part of our lecture, okay? Alice, this little girl, she examines nature. And as I say, she's very curious. Yeah? She's very curious. And she sees that, for example, the eagle flies very high and is able to catch the prey from hundreds of meters away. So number one, the eagle can fly. Alice cannot fly. And number two, the eagle has very good vision. Yes? Then she also observes that the fish, they can breathe underwater. She cannot breathe underwater, as much as we wish, right? And then she sees the gazelle, and the gazelle has very long legs to run away from predators. But we don't have long legs. We don't have wings. We cannot breathe underwater. The gazelle has long legs. We don't. But what do we have then? Alice asks herself, what makes us special? Yes. And what makes us special is our head, right? We reason. We're different from all other animals in the sense that we reason. Yes. So, we reason. We are able to infer the laws of nature from the world, and we are able to design stuff also, like this chair. Yeah? This chair, it's been clearly designed. The atoms making up this chair have not come together spontaneously and have created this chair. Someone has taken care of that it's stable and that it's comfortable also. Yeah? Therefore, do you agree with me that maybe what she thinks is that, therefore, maybe all these animals here, since they accomplish their job very well, just like the chair does, they have been designed, right? It makes a lot of sense to think that. The eagle has been designed to fly, the fish to swim, and the gazelle to run. Someone has designed this. Who has designed this? Well, someone with more or less the same abilities that we have, right? Someone who can interpret the world in the way we do. So there must be some sort of agent in the world that is able to come up with such very clever designs. Yes. And what she does is that she goes back to her village, wherever she lives. It doesn't necessarily need to be an agricultural society. It can be a tribe, it can be a city, whatever. And she goes to her tribe and tells them about this, yeah, and tells them that, oh, I have noticed this and that. And the tribe members, they also agree that the fundamental questions of humanity are where do we come from, why are we here, and why is the world the way it is, right? So they try to come up with an answer of who has designed all of this, right? And the first thing that maybe they think is that, well, there is one thing with which we could not live, we could not prosper, and that is very clear, is the sun, right? Without the sun, without the sun, we don't have anything. We don't have life. We are scared also, right? The sun, the light brings us reassurance, right? So the sun is the bringer of life. If the sun is the bringer of life, then this intelligence that we talked about, that has designed everything in nature, maybe has to do something with the sun, no? The sun. But then Alice also realizes that, well, her tribe, her clan, her city is organized in a hierarchy also, right? Not one single person has all the power, although there may be monarchies, but these persons delegate tasks to other people. As much as I am a tyrant in a city, I cannot micromanage everything that goes on in my city, right? I need to try to allocate tasks. So if the sun is behaving in the same way as Alice's structured society, then maybe there are sun helpers, right, that help this intelligence perform its work. And those are nothing but the stars, because the stars, as I've said many times in these lectures, the stars seem to have a magical power to them, because the constellations predict something very important for these kinds of societies. What is it? It's the crop cycle, yes? The crop cycle is extremely important. Now we go to the supermarket and we have all the food we want whenever we want. But before, I mean, you had to be very aware of when you plant your seeds, when you harvest, right? So the stars seem to have some sort of divine power. And divine power just comes from Latin divinare. Divinare just means to foresee, yes, to predict something. That's the origin of the word divine. The stars are the best candidates for this because they tell us everything we need to know to plan our lives. So, of course, if the sun has helpers, then maybe, for example, one of these helpers is the one that brings the rain. No? Maybe it's the one that brings the rain, and there is another helper that, I don't know, that makes sure that the soil is fertile, right? And there is another helper that, yeah, I mean, all of these, you can imagine all of these sort of helpers here. So we have one central intelligence, right? The world seems to be designed, and we agree that this intelligence maybe has helpers. So there are all of these, let's call them gods. Just come up with this word. Just call them gods that run the world. Yeah. So since we depend greatly on what nature gives us, the fruits of the trees, the animals. I mean, we wanna be good to them, right? So that we get what we want. I mean, we don't want to starve to death. We need rain for our crops, right? And so the very first thing that Alice imagines is, okay, how am I going to communicate with these gods and tell them that, hey, I'm here, I'm going to behave well, and I need the rain for the crops, yeah? So please be gentle to me. Yeah? The first thing that we need to do is we need to open a channel of communication with this part of the world that Alice calls the sacred. Yeah? The sacred is this power that is beyond her reach. Yeah? You cannot control the sun. You cannot control the stars. You cannot control the rain, so you have to reach out, yeah, to this sacred power. Whilst where Alice lives where what she can touch, that's the profane. Yeah? So we need to open a channel of communication between these beings that, do you agree with me that they seem to live in the sky, right? I mean, it seems pretty, at least the sun for sure. Yeah? It seems to live in this dome, crystal dome here. So we need to open a channel of communication. How will they hear us better? How can we make sure that they hear us better? We're really far from them. We just need better signal, yeah? So we're trying to call, we need better signal. What do? Well, something we can do is we can try to go up a mountain, yes? Try to go up a mountain, try to climb the mountain and talk to these beings because it's closer to heaven, right? And there are many magical mountains in religion, mythology, but in religion as well. Maybe you know this guy. Who is this guy here? You have any idea? Anyone can guess? Moses, you know? He has the Ten Commandments, yeah? And where did Moses get his Ten Commandments? Mount Sinai, yeah? Mount Sinai. So he went up Mount Sinai, and God gave him the Ten Commandments. Where is Jerusalem built? Where was Jerusalem built? Mount Zion, no? And you also, if you read the Bible, you have the Mount of Olives. You have many mountains, yeah? And of course, it does make sense that mountains hold some sort of magical significance, yeah? For this simple reason that I told you, that we have better signal with the divine, isn't it? No? So, if we're serious about reaching to heaven, then yeah, we need to make sure that we're reaching out to heaven. We need to make sure that we are closer to them. If there are no mountains around, what are we going to do? We're going to try to build our own mountains, no? What do you think? Yeah? And so how do you get closer to heaven? Well, you start building things from the ground up, no? And try to build as high as you can, yeah? There are different ways that you can do this, no? But one of them would be to just stack things on top of each other, no? Like this. But what happens is that the laws of physics are relentless. And that puts a lot of stress on the base of whatever you're building. And this is a very clear example, yeah? Some of you might have been in Pisa even, yeah? That if you start stacking things on top of each other, well, the base actually has a lot of pressure, yeah? And it can crumble, it can wobble, yes, like this. So that's not, that's a good way of trying to reach out to heaven, but it's not the best one, really, if we are a primitive society. What we need to do is we need to look at what my fellow citizens in Catalonia like to do. I'm from Barcelona, by the way. Have you ever seen this? This is called a castell. It's a castle. It's literally, they call it castle, yeah? And how do they, I mean, these people risk their lives. It's incredible what people do, yeah? But how do they do it? How do they build so high? Well, they're trying to expand the base, right? Look at all these people holding each other, and it's circular, and then all of this weight is held by the rest of the people, yeah? So what we need to do is simply to expand our base. And what do we get? We get pyramids. We get pyramids. Because why? It's the most efficient way to reach to heaven. Yes? And pyramids are ubiquitous. They are everywhere. They can be found in Central America, they can be found in Asia, they can be found in Egypt. So they are very, very, very good ways to reach out to heaven. Yeah? No wonder that we build these artifacts all around the world. Yes. But yeah, I mean, not all of these deities may live in heaven, yes? Maybe some of them are buried deep inside some caves. And, for example, the deities of fertility, maybe they are buried deep inside the earth, because the earth is a womb, right? That's where we plant our seed, and something grows. So maybe some other people, but instead of building pyramids, they go inside of caves, and they perform some rituals here. Yeah? And this is in the Cosquer cave in France. And you can see here, these are really old pictures. Basically, they are burning the stone with some sort of fire here or charcoal. And you can even see that they have chopped their fingers somehow for some reason. So they go deep inside of the earth and they perform these rituals with fire, right? Fire is also a very powerful symbol because fire is just the imitation of the sun. The sun is warm, it gives us light, right? So it makes sense that fire holds a very special place in our rituals because it's a piece of the sun. And something that I've said before also. If you go into deep into one of these caves and you light your fire and you find a stone that shines with the light of the fire or with the light of the sun, you're going to really value that sort of stone. What am I talking about? I'm talking about gold, of course. Gold. And guess what? Gold doesn't react with anything. So it's immutable, yes? It does not mutate, just like this supernatural deity that we talked about in the beginning. You start to see the sort of connections that these peoples may have done in their heads, yes? And when you go deep inside of these caves, because maybe the deities of fertility live there and you want to appeal to them, well, you start doing all of these rituals, right? And I had some sound that doesn't play, but you can imagine the sort of trance in which you are found when the shaman starts making really weird sounds with his voice and everyone is doing their percussion. You see the shaman go into a trance and seems to go into a faraway world, right? And that seems to be the same sort of connection that we're looking for in the divine, when we go at the top of the mountain. Yeah. So as I say, you can go up and down a mountain. You can go deep into a cave, or if you don't have caves and you don't have mountains, what you can do is you can carry the center of the world with you, yeah? Because these mountains and caves are the centers of the world. It's where we speak to these deities. You can carry them with you. And this is the Venus of Willendorf, around 30,000 years ago. 30,000 years ago. Can you imagine how old this is? And what does she look like? She seems to be a goddess of fertility, definitely. Yeah? So if we live in a society where we're hunter-gatherers and we're running all day, hunting for animals. Imagine seeing this sort of woman. What does this tell you? She's a woman with steatopegia. Basically, she has accumulated a lot of fat in her hips and her breasts and her buttocks here. That tells you that she's a very rich woman. She's a noble woman, right? She's a noble woman that doesn't do anything at all. She's just sitting there all day. So she's a very good symbol of fertility because she will give you healthy children. And this, we carry this with us just by contagion, just by thinking that maybe if I carry this, it will pass on to me or my family, right? So you start to see all of these rituals. This figure right here is just stone, but has been turned into a person, yeah, sort of person. Well, this is not the only time where we try to do this, where we try to make these associations. We try to do it in nature, everywhere. What do these clouds look like to you? What kind of adjectives can you think about for this? How does this look? How do the clouds look? Ominous.
Sunflowers.
Sunflowers, yeah, but they look angry. Huh? Don't they look angry? They look angry. They look dark and they look angry. But come on, a cloud cannot be angry. A cloud cannot be angry. Still, we say that it's angry, right? So we anthropomorphize nature. Yeah, we try to assign human qualities to nature, just like this rock right here. It's called the Weeping Rock. It's in Anatolia. The legend goes that it's Greek mythology. Niobe, this woman here, she got all her children killed, and she wept so much she turned into a rock, or more or less. But it looks like a woman, right? You agree? So we try to anthropomorphize nature as much as we can, because it feels familiar to us. And it does make a lot of sense to look for agents, yeah? to assign persons or spirits to nature. Because it's wired in our brain, because it's deeply wired in our brain. Why? Because if you're Australopithecus, I mean, not even a human being, I mean, not even a homo. If we go further back in time, if you're an Australopithecus, one of the early ancestors of humanity, and you're walking in the savannah, and you hear the ruffling sound, no, of the leaves next to you, it makes sense that you think that whatever happened there is maybe a lion lurking, about to eat you. Yeah? So before even you look at what's happening, you think, oh, fear response, there's something coming for me. Yes? So we tend to assign agents to nature. Yeah? So we say, even if there's not a lion there, it's just the wind moving the leaves, it makes evolutionary sense to think that there is a lion. Because your life could depend on it. What if you're wrong, right? What if you're wrong? And there is actually a lion that you cannot see. Well, you better start running. Yeah. So what happens then is that, what happens when there is not valid, or there is not an evident agent? For example, I showed this example in the lecture on the Babylonians, but I'm going to say it again. What happens if there is an earthquake? Yeah. What happens if there is an earthquake and everyone but your family is saved? Everyone with your family is dead. Yeah. So only your family is safe. What do you do? What do people normally say when that happens? Thank God. Thank God. Yeah. And it comes automatically for us. We say, oh, thank God. Why? Because when there is no one to thank for in a disaster such as an earthquake that doesn't have a very straightforward cause, then we just say, thank God. We make up the agent. Yeah? And that's really, that's linked to our life in the savannah and all of these millions of years ago, because it made the people, think about it like this, the people who thought that they saw a lion when something was moving next to them, yes, they are the people who passed on their genes. So this trait was justified, and that's where we come from, yeah, from these sort of people, yeah. So really, it does come from this time, millions of years ago, yeah. And so, if these agents interact with the natural world, do they also interact with us? Yeah. So until now, we have been saying that there are these agents only interact with the natural world. Okay. Now, what is the nature of these agents? And I'm going to give you a very interesting thought experiment by Carl Sagan, one of my favorite heroes. What do these agents look like? Yeah. And I'm going to try to justify this thing that I told you that we try to make up our own agents. Well, let's assume that I tell you I have a dragon in my garage. Yeah? I say there is a dragon in my garage. Here's the dragon, yeah? in my mind. Yeah? And you say, okay, you're a bit skeptic, and you say, well, okay, I want to see the dragon. So we go to the garage, and you don't see the dragon, and I tell you, you have to know, the dragon is invisible, actually. Yeah? You cannot see it. You cannot see it. And you are very smart, and you say, okay, but you know what we're going to do? We're going to put some powder on the floor so that when the dragon steps on the powder, we will see the footsteps, yeah? And I say, no. The thing is that the dragon flies all the time, yeah? So it doesn't touch the ground. And you say, okay, you trust me, but you say, okay, but then you know what we're going to do? We're going to hang some papers from the ceiling, and so when the dragon is flying, we will see how the papers move. Yeah, I say no. You have to see. The dragon can go through walls also. I say okay. So the dragon can go through walls, and then you say, well, you know what? What we're going to do is we're going to have a thermal camera, and we're going to see the dragon move in thermal vision. Yeah, and I say, but you have to know he doesn't show up in thermal vision either. So after all of these steps, what is the difference between having a dragon in my garage, this is what I say, and no dragon at all? Yes, if I cannot touch it, if I cannot interact with it, that's the biggest problem of this sort of belief system. Yeah, that there is no way that I can prove to you that these entities exist. Okay, but you know what? Still, invisible or not, if these deities are like us, if these deities are intelligent, right, like us, as we said in the beginning, maybe they like the same stuff as we do, right? Maybe they have the same sort of taste, and maybe they appreciate a good meal. Maybe they appreciate a good meal. Maybe they appreciate the same sort of stones that I told you that we value deep in the caves. Yeah. So what if we want to appeal to them? Yeah. And if we want to ask for a favor, well, maybe we're going to give them the sort of stuff that we like. Yeah. So we're going to sacrifice a lamb, or we're going to sacrifice a goat, or we're going to fill altars with precious stones that we also like. And hopefully that will appeal to them, and they will be nice to us. Yeah. For example, also the gods very much like it when we bury people. Yeah, and they do not like it when we do not bury people. Yeah? Why? Because Alice notices that other villages that haven't buried their dead, well, they have had diseases. And some of Alice's colleagues have died, right? Because they didn't bury their dead. So maybe the gods really like that we bury their dead. Yeah. And actually, if you notice how death smells, yeah, it smells like sulfur, it smells like nitrates. Yeah. And there are some places in the earth, like Lago d'Averno. Lago d'Averno is in Napoli, and it's the place where Aeneas, one of the mythical characters in Virgil's Aeneid, yeah, he goes down to hell in this lake. And lo and behold, this lake is actually a volcanic crater. So there are places in the earth, yeah, that seem to smell like death. Yeah. Of course, I'm talking about volcanoes. I'm talking about all of these cracks on the earth, right? So something bad is going on down there. Do you agree? We like what's going on up there, but something bad is going on down there. Yeah? I wonder what's going to happen to the people that don't behave well and that the gods punish. Where are they going to go? Yeah? If the underground world smells so bad, smells like death and terrible. Yeah, so I'm sure that some of you are already linking concepts in your head. Yeah. Now, if we have opened this channel of communication, both underground or up the mountains, this channel of communication may remain open, and you can imagine how this sort of ritualistic behavior has evolved to a point where you no longer need to be somewhere to to appeal and to speak with these gods? Maybe you just close your eyes, put your hands together, and pray to them. But that has big implications. Because then it means that these big gods, I call them big gods, can listen to everything that you do, to everything that you think, and watch you all the time. Yeah. So praying is just a channel of communication with these gods that is constant. Yeah. So when we start offering all of these gifts to the gods, and when we don't do it also, yeah, we run the risk of not gaining their favor. So for example, there is one guy in Alice's clan that sacrifices one lamb one day in order for the rain to come, and instead of that they have one more month of drought. Later he tries to sacrifice a goat, let's say, or a cow, and the rains come the next day. You know what happens when you start doing this is that you start observing superstitious behavior. Yeah? So you start becoming superstitious. You say, okay, the goat didn't work, but the cow worked. So what we're going to do now is every time we want to look for it to rain, we're going to sacrifice a cow, yeah, instead of a lamb. These sort of stories, yes. But what I want to tell you is that we're really, really, really bad at calculating probabilities and making statistics in our head, like really bad. So it does make a lot of sense that these peoples, you know, they evolved these superstitious behaviors, right? For example, I have here a deck of cards. Yes, I have a deck of cards. There are 52 cards, okay, and I want to ask you, how many ways can I order? How many ways can I order this deck of cards if there are 52 cards? But we can guess. We can just get 100 ways, maybe? 1,000? Way more? Okay, 1 million. More than 1 million? Yeah, I can assure you that there has not been a human being that has ordered the cards like this before me or after me, ever. Because it's 52 factorial. 52 factorial is a number so enormous, 10 to the 67 ways. And just for comparison, that's the number of atoms, more or less, of the Milky Way galaxy. Here. So we're really bad at statistics. We're really bad at really counting probabilities and making sense of what happens. Correlation doesn't mean causation, is what I'm trying to say. Just because, I mean, the rooster sings every time the sun goes up. Yeah? Does this mean that the sun goes up because the rooster sings? Yeah? I mean, we're not good at really calculating this or pondering about this in a reasonable way. So of course you see superstitious behavior. And as Horatius would say, yeah, Horace in English would say, one of the three canonical poets, he would write this in the Satires: Qui non stultus, who's not a fool? I'm a fool too, I can promise you. Say, oh, this guy, maybe he's a bit smart, no, he talks about all of it. No, I promise you, 2 weeks ago, we had this internet blackout in our house, yes? And I tried everything in the world to fix this internet. It's like, I promise you, I was almost like doing it with my eyes closed. I don't know, doing it standing up, trying to fix it standing up. And then what I realized is that the next day, when I got in my car and the internet was not fixed yet, and I was really nervous and shouting in my car and saying, why does this happen to me? This actually helped and the internet worked when I got home. Of course not. Of course it didn't help, but you can imagine, right? Am I convincing you that superstition affects all of us? Even now, I mean, we think of ourselves as being very smart with our smartphones, but our brain hasn't had the time to catch up in the last 12,000 years since we started civilization. We're very smart, but not that smart, actually. Yeah. So we totally understand this sort of superstition. But then things get very serious. And what happens is that Alice has a one-to-one encounter with death. her grandpa, he dies. And that's another story. I mean, all these fun and games, now it's the real deal. What's happened? What happens, yeah? She feels very sad. This is a beautiful painting. Tidemanengude. It's a Likfjær. It's in Norway, in the Norwegian National Gallery. She feels very sad. And that's what I told you in the beginning, is I not only care how the world works, but how it makes me feel. And one of the things I hate about this world is that everyone has to die at some point. Why do we have to die? Why can't we live a life like the seasons? Seasons always come back. Spring always comes back, right? Spring, summer, autumn, winter is really cold and really dark, but no problem. Spring comes later, yes? But our lives do not work like that. Our lives are not a cycle. They go from A to B and they finish. And that not only makes Alice sad and angry, but everyone else. So we go into Act 2 of our presentation, which is Fear Management 101. Or should I call it Terror Management? How do we navigate this world in which a lot of things cause us pain? We need all the guidance we can get. Especially, as I said, when we're face to face with death. Svartedauden, another Norwegian painter. This drawing is amazing. It's the plague, yeah, visiting each Norwegian knowledge. Terrifying. Look at her eyes. She's looking at you. And what most people don't know also is that Kittelsen, this guy that drew this, also attached some writings to it. So, for example, look at this painting with this writing. Is someone coming? Say, yes, that's what he thought. Up there around the bend comes an ugly, crooked old woman with a rake and a broom. Terrifying. Death is terrifying, yeah. But luckily for us, we came up with stories on how to deal with this, right? Who are the most vulnerable people in our society when it comes to terror and fear? Our children. Our children. We need to take care of them. Yeah? We need to make sure that they can grow up in a world of adversities. We need to make sure that we can teach them how to be strong people, yeah, in the future. And so we have, for example, these sort of stories, these sort of fairy tales, right? We have Hansel and Gretel. And what's the story of Hansel and Gretel about? It's about a fear that is even darker than death. Can there be a fear that is even more unsettling than death? Can you think of anything else? A very special kind of death. The fear of being devoured. The fear of being eaten. Yes? That's a really profound fear. Do you agree? That's the fear that we, not only humans, feel, but all other animals as well. All other animals know what this fear looks like. So I'm going to be eaten. And do you remember what happens in Hansel and Gretel's story? There are a boy and a girl, two siblings that live in Germany of the 19th century. And there are lots of famines in Germany of the 19th century, okay? And so their parents, they decide that it's better for all of them to just leave them in the forest. So to sever the umbilical cord that unites these two brothers with their family. That's horrible. That's bloody horrible. Because their parents are the only ones that can take care of them. So that's a really sad story. And so they go into the forest, and what happens? They abandon them once, and this little brother, Hansel, he has some pebbles, and he leaves a trail of pebbles in the stones that shine with the moon, yeah, and it leaves a trail, and then they can come back, yeah. So he's smart. He says, "No, I'm gonna outsmart this." But then the second time, they leave them so far away that they cannot find their way back, actually. And so what does happen? What happens is that they get to this house, and there's this witch that offers them candy, yeah, a house made of candy, everything that they needed, right? But the witch wants to eat them. The witch wants to eat them. Yeah? But luckily for them, Gretel, the little girl, she's very brave and she pushes the witch into the oven when she is not fully aware of what's going on. Yeah, and so they can come back home. What is the point of this story? What is the point of telling stories at all? They are just risk-free simulations. Risk-free simulations of life that we can teach our children while they are in bed. And we have done this for thousands of years. For thousands of years. Yeah? So stories, fairy tales, mythologies, etc., they try to teach us something about the world. Yeah? To try to... They also gave us a moral teaching. Yeah? That's where I want to get. Where I want to get to. This has a moral teaching. This story has a moral teaching. And it is that if you're a resourceful, ingenious kid that leaves little stones on the ground, then maybe you will be able to go back home. And also if you are a brave little girl that can overcome fear, maybe you will help your brother and you will be saved. That's the moral of the story. And that the bad witch burns in the flames of the oven. So if you're bad stuff gonna happen to you, okay? Right. So we will use any help we can get, okay? And these are these sort of stories that we tell our children. Now I'm going to try to tell you how I think all of this comes together and forms the basis of religion, okay? We have seen that fear is one of the basic human emotions. There are like 6 basic human emotions, like fear, anger, happiness, you know. Fear is one of them. Okay. It triggers a flee response. So that means that whatever we're scared of, yeah, we want to run away from it. Yeah, we saw it in the agents in the savannah, etc. Yeah, we want to run away from it. Yeah, we want to distance ourselves from danger. But luckily for us, we're not alone. Yeah, we have groups of people, so we find safety in numbers. You agree? That's why we lived in societies of hunter-gatherers, because we are, as a group, we are better than as a person, as an individual. Yeah? However, some of these dangers that I'm talking about, some of these fears, do not have physical causes. Yeah? Like death. How do you stop death from coming to you or to your group? You cannot do that. You cannot run away from death like you would run away from a crocodile or a lion. Still, even if it's not a physical danger, if it's a metaphysical danger, okay, it means just beyond what is physical, we will try to separate ourselves from it, okay? And how is death a danger? Also, we have to wonder, how is death a danger? Why do we feel it's a danger? I told you that, yeah, we really think about death, and it makes a lot of sense, because if we are animals that can wonder about the past, the present, and the future, if we can wonder about any possible scenarios in the future, if we're aware of how the eagle flies and how the fish swims, then we are aware of our mortality as well. Yeah? If we're aware of everything that goes on in the world, we're also aware that we're limited beings and that our time in this planet is finite. We're going to live a few decades and that's it. And that's terrifying. That's terrifying, but it cannot be so terrifying that it hinders our survival probability or our survival efficiency. Yeah? Imagine that, yeah, one day, imagine 40,000 years ago, we suddenly realize we're mortal. So, oh, okay, what am I going to do now? Yeah? Are you just going to stay there in fear and do nothing about it and just, okay, I'm going to die. Oh my God, what am I going to do? No, you need some sort of mechanism to keep you out from this deadly loop. Yeah? So what we're going to try to do in this group of people, we're all aware about this fact, right? But we're going to try to find safety, as I say, from this terror together. And what we're going to try to do is, we're going to try to build a wall. Yeah? We're going to try to build a fortress. We're going to try to build a fortress that protects us, not only from the bad animals or the very scary animals living in the forest, but we're going to try to protect ourselves from everything that makes us anxious, that makes us scared. And we're going to build these walls metaphysically speaking. Yeah, it's just a metaphor. Yeah. And so how are we going to build these walls? We're going to build these walls against chaos, yeah, using everything that we believe makes us feel safe. And what is that but the sort of rituals that I've told you about, the sort of what we deem most important, right? If we deem very important that kinship is very important, then we're going to value family a lot. We're going to value being good to the gods by doing this and that, and we're going to also try to build our walls using the superstitious beliefs that we have, because we saw that if we sacrifice a cow, rain comes. So that's what we're going to try to do. We're going to try to build a wall with this. Yeah. But still, even if we try to build this fortress, it will have some cracks because death will still come into the group. Yeah. Bad stuff will still come into the group, and in our hopes that we will purge whatever comes inside, and we will try to talk about it, right? And we will try to make these traumatic events that lie beyond the world less traumatic by seeking group cohesion. Yeah. So still there will be this crack of death, no? Because death affects us all. And so I think that what we try to do then is like, okay, we can never really change death. So what we're going to do is this. There is a crack in the wall that leaks death always, right? And instead what we're going to do is we're going to make a gate. So we're going to open the hole and we're going to make a gate, yes. And we know that death will come in that way, will come in and out, but we're going to put some gatekeepers, some guardians on the gate. Yeah? And they are going to decide when death comes and what's going to happen to the people that cross that gate also. So in a sense, we open this gate to the chaos, and then what we do also is that since the amount of terror that we can have is just infinite, the amount of bad things that can happen to us is so infinite, we're going to try to bring the infinite to us, yes, and this gate will lead us to a new place that is also walled. Okay, I know this is a bit weird, but you're going to see where I'm going. And every time we cross this gate, we're going to get somewhere that we're familiar with, actually. And what I mean with this is that the gatekeepers of this gate will be supernatural gatekeepers that will lead us through a door and will be in a place that is familiar to us, yeah, that we have made familiar to us. And of course, I'm talking about the afterlife, yes? And the afterlife is just one door from one familiar place to another that otherwise is chaotic, but we have made familiar ourselves by telling ourselves, well, this is a place where these divine beings take care of you and you don't have to worry. It's just a rite of passage, okay? It's another stance, but hey, don't worry. We are familiar with this, yeah? We have been through this. And of course, in every gate has you need to open it, yeah? It's locked, yeah? So what do you need? Yeah? You need a key, yeah? Here I have a key. So you need a key to open this door to be able to go in. Otherwise it's closed because these gatekeepers keep it closed. What is the key then? Well, the key is just the moral codes that whatever we have agreed on, right? It's just the worldview that we all share, okay? It's the worldview that makes the fortress a very, very good place to live in. That's the key. So that's the key to morality, and that's the key to that's the way we will go through this gate. Yeah, and you may say, but what are you talking about gates and fortresses, and what does this have to do with religion or our own way of living? Well, our world is full of gates. Our world is full of gates. Some of them are physical, like Ishtar's door here. It was one of the doors in Babylon. So when you crossed it, you knew you got into the city, and it was a different place. It was part of the sacred, part of this divine essence that makes up the world, right? Some other gates are not physical, but they are metaphysical. Yeah. So this is Abraham. about to kill his son Isaac, yeah? Because God had chosen him to found his religion, basically. Yeah? Abraham is the origin of the Abrahamic religions, of Judaism, Christianism, and Islam. God makes Abraham go through a gate, and this gate is to say, where I'm going to challenge you so much that you have to kill your child. Yeah? And just when he's about to kill him, an angel takes back the sword, yeah, and says, no, it was just a test. Yeah? I say, but these are all stories. I'm talking about Babylon, I'm talking about Abraham, thousands of years ago. Hey, we still have doors everywhere. We still have rites of passage everywhere. This is the student. The student. Yeah, student. It's what teenagers are 19-year-old. Well, it's the rite of passage towards adulthood. Yeah, here in Sweden. And if you think, but we're not superstitious anymore, this is just a tradition, and then why are they wearing white clothes? Because they're pure, right? So they want to go from stance A to stance B as pure as possible, right? And that's exactly what. Do you see now my analogy with the fortress? Yeah, we have tried to build a gate. On the other side of the gate, it's chaos, but we have made it so that now it's a familiar feeling to us. Yeah? Now chaos is familiar, and so when we cross these gates, the only thing we're doing is we're going from one familiar place to another. That's what rites of passage are. And you can trace back their significance to, as I said, sacrificing lambs and stuff, because it makes us feel safe, okay? Act 3, we're almost there, Act 3. Knowing what we know now, right, that religion tries to open passages between very difficult places, and that the key to opening these passages is whatever worldview we all share. So for example, if we decide that our worldview depends on our, let's say, equanimity, right? Our ability to live a happy life depends on not killing pigs because they have trichinosis, a very, very dangerous bacteria, or because they're pig squeal, yeah. Because the squeals reminds us of a person suffering. Yeah? We're not going to kill pigs. And we're not going to eat pig also. You see? See how these are all rituals that reinforce, validate ourselves. Yeah? Right, so this is what religion does. So then what I thought is that, okay, we have all of these gods, which, by the way, all of these gods, we saw that they were supernatural, right? These gatekeepers, they were supernatural. So how do we know that they exist and that we're not fooling ourselves? Because what I'm saying is, we're fooling ourselves, because if they are invisible, no one can see them, like the dragon that I had in my garage, how do we know that they exist? Well, if they are supernatural, we cannot perform experiments to validate their existence. How are we going to seek validation then? How are we going to do it? We're just going to talk to other people and say, they exist, right? And they will say yes. And that's all we need. That will be all we need, just asking other people. But you also believe in that? Yes, absolutely. That keeps our fortress very, very, very strong. And even what we're going to do is we're going to gather every Sunday, and we're all going to agree that these gods exist. And that, yes, there is this door to the afterlife, and even if we don't see them, we all agree that this door exists. So, yeah, so you see how religion is very human, in my opinion. It's very, very human. Yeah? But okay, as I said, we talked about all of these gods, and I'm going to represent them with a palette of colors that has all the colors. We said that there are gods for everything. There is a god for fertility. There is a god for fire. There is a god that carries the sun around the sky. Here I have Rubens. I have the Judgment of Paris, and here I have Aphrodite, Athena. Aphrodite and Hera. Yeah, so we have many gods. And by the way, I said this some lectures ago, but here Rubens is just flexing his muscle because he's painting a woman from the front, he's painting a woman from the side, and he's painting a woman from the back. He's telling us, I'm so good, I can paint a woman in all different positions. Yes? So we have all of these gods, but then I think that someone might have realized that the god of the rain might not be so detached from the god of the sea, right? Because when there is bad weather, there is bad sea, so it's dangerous, right, to go out in the sea. And actually the god of the rain must be somewhat related to the god of fertility, right? Because without rain, there is no fertility. So maybe there are some redundancies here. And we start grouping the gods, right? Say, okay, but these gods are more or less the same. And these are more or less the same. Maybe there's just one god for all of these topics, right? And so, for example, we start grouping all these gods, and then we reach a trinity. Yeah? So you see that all the colors now have been condensed into a triangle here. And we reach a trinity. And what's the point of a trinity? We see several trinities, very important trinities throughout history. One of them is the Egyptian Trinity. Horus, Osiris, and Isis, and Isis. Yeah? Another very important trinity, of course, is the Catholic Trinity. The Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Okay? What's the point about a trinity? Why three into one? Why three sides of the same coin, let's say? Well, because a trinity, three implies that there's a middle. That's a powerful concept. Yeah? That's a powerful concept. Three implies that there's a middle, and we see that there are two worlds, one above us, one below us, as I said, and we live in the middle. So the symbolism is really good. But if we group even these three into two, we also reach, as I say, two gods here, right? Like a dipole. Here is an electric dipole. And what's the point of having two gods or two opposite entities? Well, then you can summarize all your morality into good and bad. That's the point, right? Good and bad. So two. But why stop there? We have been grouping gods all the time. So what's the end? What's the only possible ending is that we have all these colors here condensed into one single entity. And this is very aptly called the eye of God. It's a nebula. Yeah. That's maybe how we reach monotheism. It's impossible to know the answer, really. I mean, how did we reach to monotheism? But you can see, no? Maybe this is the thought process. And I'm going to stop here. I'm going to recap what we have talked about. Is that we talked about this tale with Alice in the divine realization. We talked about rituals and superstition, that who is not a fool, right? I'm a fool, everyone is. And then we have also fear management, yeah, and we have tried to build this fortress to keep out chaos. And then we also saw that all of these gods, actually, they are similar, some of them, and you can actually turn them into a trinity or a duality, or eventually monotheism. And now I link this presentation to my next presentation in 1 month. And in 1 month, we're going to talk about the first monotheistic religion that we know of, with a lot of certainty, yeah? And that's Zoroastrianism. Yeah? We're going to talk about Zoroastrianism in one month. And Zoroastrianism, the god of Zoroastrianism is called Ahura Mazda. Ahura Mazda, and you know Mazda, right? You know it. You know the convertibles, right? Actually, it's not because of the Japanese convertible. It's because of the wings. And the Japanese guy that founded Mazda, he really liked Ahura Mazda, and he gave it this name. And it's actually this one. This is Ahura Mazda. Ahura Mazda is, as I say, with a lot of certainty, the first monotheistic religion that we know of. And we're talking about spans of time that challenge the imagination. Some estimates say that Zoroaster, the prophet of Ahura Mazda, he spoke maybe in the year 1700 before Christ or something like that. And we're talking about really old times. Yeah? And so if we are to investigate the story of Judaism, what we're going to do later, and the early story of Christianism, then we have to start here. Because that's the first real instance of a God that is all good, all powerful, all wise, yes? And I'm not going to spoil too much, but this guy also, if you want that this God, if this God is going to treat you well, then you're going to have to obey by his law, right? And actually, when your life finishes, he will make you cross a bridge, yes? And down the bridge, there is a hell with fire, and you're going to burn if you fall there. And if you have been bad during your life, this bridge that you have to cross will be as thin as a razor. So good luck crossing the bridge, like this, yeah? So we're going to talk about Zoroastrianism, as I say, the 14th of March, and its more than possible relationship with Judaism, for sure. Because Cyrus, I have said it before, the king that saved the Jews in Babylon while they stayed in Babylon, we will go through this, he was not, the religion of this guy was Zoroastrianism. And there are still Zoroastrians to this day that worship Ahura Mazda. So that's what we're going to do. Thank you so much.